So after prom comes the actual graduation. And I am going to begin by talking about the senior awards ceremony, which at George Washington High School is also the same day that new members are inducted into the Hall of Merit, the George Washington Hall of Merit, which is kind of a big deal. There are only 13 public schools in San Francisco. George Washington High School includes alumni like Maya Angelou attended George Washington. Don't kill me, but not Smokey Robinson. Anyway, we have a few notable alumni. It's a pretty prestigious public high school. And anyway, you'll see where I'm going with all of this. So the thing is, the senior awards ceremony normally takes place between fifth and sixth period, which is right after lunch. So you get my drift. Most people like to skip. Again, it's been more than 10 years, so I'm trying to see if I remember all of this correctly. But I think that the only reason why I wasn't planning on skipping, it was one of two things. I either had a quiz in the period after, so I couldn't skip, and or I was planning to try out for senior speaker, which, again, I think it just wouldn't have been a good look if I had not attended the senior speaker ceremony and then or the senior awards ceremony, Hall of Merit inductees, and then tried to sign up for senior speaker. And it really would have been a bad look. You'll see where I'm going with this. So again, I show up to the ceremony. Like, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, like, I was involved and I got good grades, but I was not Superman in high school. Like, you can tell that there are parts of the story that I don't necessarily want to tell, that I still have not decided how much in depth I'm going to go into. But I did not have the best of relationship with my family at the time. I lived with my grandma my last 2 years of high school, and I almost went into foster care. I don't really want to talk much more about that. So when I tell you that kind of my vision and kind of my goal of like kind of getting into college and graduating from high school, I think was like a little bit different than it was for most people. It's my way of, pardon my French, but like just getting the fuck out of my situation and creating a better life for myself, right? So I just remember I was sitting in the back because I'm not expecting to win anything. I'm just there because I got to be there. And then all I remember is that one of my favorite teachers, who at the time was head of the Department of Math, God rest her soul, Mrs. Gail Beresford, she came up and she announced me as winner of most enthusiastic member of the General Service Society. So I was like, wow. And that actually came with like a $500 scholarship. So I was totally blown away, not expecting to win that, absolutely shocked. And then it came time for the subject awards. So everybody got an award in all these different sciences: best student in math, best student in English, etc., history. Now, again, I was a good student, but you also have to realize that my class was insanely competitive. I don't think there's ever been another year where literally 40 kids got into UCLA. 20 kids, at least to my knowledge, got into Berkeley, right? Like, our class was insanely competitive. So I didn't think there was a chance in hell that I was going to win any of the subject awards. Like, sure, I had done research at UCSF. Like, sure, I had gotten, fives on a couple of my AP tests. But the thing is, sure had a few of my other classmates. And I also know that in my class, as competitive as we were, if I remember correctly, I was barely in the top 5% of the class. Barely. And so anyway, without even going into numbers and GPAs and all that, because it honestly really doesn't matter. But I'll never forget, Mr. Lauder came up, my AP biology teacher, because I had AP biology my junior year, gotten a 5 on the exam, and then my senior year, I had AP chemistry, and the AP chemistry teacher was the head of the science department. So my current teacher, just throwing that out there. And when he announced that I got best student in science, like, I didn't realize how this, and like, I still have the plaque at home, but also, I also think the other thing you have to realize is that I don't think in the history of George Washington High School, a half Latino student has ever been awarded with best student in science. You know, let alone, you know, Salvadoran immigrant, right? The child of a Salvadoran immigrant. I did not realize at that moment, like, I was just on such a cloud. I was not going into this ceremony expecting to win jack shit. But I remember when I went up to receive my award, Mr. Lauder like kind of hinted at me to come and shake hands with all of the people who had been inducted into the Hall of Merit. And like, again, I was not expecting to win anything. I came out winning 2 awards. And then I just remember, I honestly don't remember if I had class afterwards, but I didn't cut. I couldn't, right? I was there. And I'm telling you, I don't remember if the senior speaker tryouts were immediately after, or if I went to class and then I went to the senior speaker tryouts. But I do remember that the panel of teachers that were there to judge the senior speaker tryouts had just seen me win all these awards, right? And I was on such a cloud, I was on such a high, I'll be honest. And here's the other thing. I had spent the entire summer before working on my speech. I thought there was no way that I wasn't going to not get this spot. I stand by that comment, even after seeing who they did pick. Obviously, it wasn't me. I have a little bit of insider knowledge. I'm told, again, this is hearsay. This is not, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But I'm told that apparently the panel deliberated for a full hour afterwards. And there were the 2 that were chosen, and that I barely made it, because this was also the first time that they chose 2. Leave out my opinions, but yeah, I wasn't one of the 2 chosen. But none of that mattered, because I was on my way to UCLA. I had won best student in science. I mean, I even got the prom that, for all intents and purposes, a kid like me should not have gotten, right? So even though high school itself was kind of shitty, honestly, would never ever do that shit ever again. All I could tell was that the future was bright. I felt like my hard work had all paid off. And in the next video, I will tell you about the actual ceremony, which was a sight to behold of itself, literally.